Buonasera, Ciprian.
Mute now, and it's okay now. I hope you can hear me. Good evening, bună seara, Marcelo. Let's say in Romanian too. I will not talk very much about myself, even if I could speak a lot, but I have to point a few things. You told me not to talk very much. I will have 10 minutes. I just want to tell that I was born in Romania in the time when in Romania it was the communists. But my luck was that I was born in the northwest of Romania, where we had two borders with two different countries, with Hungary and Ukraine. And I learned since I was a kid that there is always a border near you, but on the other side of the border, there are always opportunities. And for being able to reach, to find those opportunities, is very important to go there, to have the courage to cross the border, to go on the other side. And I think this is very important for all the teenagers, because when we are talking about their future, you know, the teenagers have always in their mind what will happen, how it will be, if it's going to be okay, if I will fail, or this kind of things. My suggestion to all the young people is never be afraid. And they should all put apart from their life all the fears that they have, to be courageous, to try new things, to try new ideas, and to follow their dreams until their dreams come true, because most of the teenagers have dreams. And those dreams must be put on the reality of their life if they want so. I think that each young person should follow this path, because when you want to do something, the first thing to do is by setting by yourself an example and going on your path in the things that you believe in. And it's very important. For this, a lot of teenagers are afraid of not failing about what they are doing. But even if we have here a saying that says that those who are wise are learning from the people who failed, and those who are fool will try all their life to learn from their failures. So my point of view is that in the young ages that the teenagers have, and of course in the first years that they will have in the beginning of their careers, in their businesses, to have the courage to fail, and don't be afraid to fail. They should have the courage to make amazing mistakes, because only those who try something new are making mistakes. And I think it's very, very important. And this also is connected with what I was already having a suggestion, not to be afraid of anything and having the courage to do anything that they are dreaming about. I'm working in different areas, and one of the areas that I'm working in is the automotive industry, which is very rapidly changing now compared to what we had in the past. In the future, everything will be changed, will be totally different in this industry. But not only in this industry. I wanted to point it out because all the life is changing very, very quickly. And the teenagers must learn since their young age that their life will be like the sand in the desert. You can sleep in the evening with the sand in one position, in the morning when you wake up to be totally different. But this is something that the new world will offer to all of us, because everything is changing quickly, and the new technologies will join our life in each second. Most people are using, when are talking about the technologies, a word which is disturbing, and they call them disturbing technologies. I would like to say that I'm convinced actually that the new technologies will not be disturbing, but will be very good for everybody. And those technologies will join us and will help the future generations, like the teenagers, to have a better life than the previous generations. Another thing that I would recommend to the teenagers, because most of them are playing today, and they are joining all day their friends on the internet to travel. When they will have possibility again to discuss with their parents, to travel, to go in as many places as possible when they will be young and during their whole life. I think that when you are going somewhere, you are like reading a interesting book. And this world has so many interesting places, so many interesting cultures, so many interesting ways of living, that only by going there and by experimenting personally, you will feel exactly the roots of each culture. Traveling makes you wiser, and traveling opens your minds so that you will always have new ideas, and you will be a better man understanding, or a better woman understanding other positions and other beliefs that you are growing up with. The world is global, and this is why I think that the new generations will have to fight together to have common goals, to go together in the development of their living standards. And I think that the new generations will have a very difficult life when they will try to find the common ground that makes them closer, instead of finding all those differences that a lot of people are trying to find in different nations, in different cultures, and these kind of things. The world, I repeat, is global, and my opinion is that the young generation should have a global mindset from the beginning, because this is another reason that they will have success in the future in their life. Marcelo, you can ask me anything if you want. I think that I tried to give some suggestions to the young persons that will look to what we are discussing. And I try to make them, first of all, be optimistic, second of all, be courageous, and third of all, try to have always the courage to go on the other side of all the frontiers that appear during our life.
Oh, thanks for that. And these are all very sound types of advice. Travel and don't be afraid to fail. It does come with a pinch of salt, as in they are very applicable and they should definitely be applied more. But one of the issues when you're a teenager is that you're very self-conscious, and most teenagers, they are changing very quickly, so they're very insecure. So the idea of us failing when we are in our early 20s is a lot easier than when you still don't really know when your left ear is going to be the same size as the right ear, because you're growing in all sorts of strange ways. I saw a couple of pictures of me when I was 16 a few weeks ago. I was like, who's this person? It just looks so incredibly different. And I do recall being very insecure, for many reasons. So my suggestion in this case is that you can still try to be an entrepreneur and fail, but make sure that you do that as a group of friends. Because if you're 3, 4, 5 friends trying to do something and the venture fails, you're not the fault, right? You're not the reason why you failed. The group has failed. So it's a lot easier for them to try to take risks as a group than as individuals. And if there are teenagers out there that are willing to try and fail by themselves, no, more power to them, right? But I do think that teenagers struggle with the definition of who they are and with their place in society, which makes it harder to follow the fail fast and fail cheaply kind of approach. With travel, of course, it depends on the budget, right? It depends on having a family that can afford going around. But the point that I make in this case is that not all travels are outside. You can travel inside as well. And that's called reading a book and reading a novel and paying attention to the little forest close to your house. Like, trying to observe the details. So if you can go far, go deeper and try to understand more about your surroundings. It will make you much richer. So it's just to reinforce the point that yes, travel is a very important thing. And I've been to 125 countries myself, right? I want to visit every country in the world. No, not going to be this year, but still, no, I'm hoping to eventually get it done. And it's important to get this, the message across to them, saying not only this is a good idea, it is something that you're perfectly capable of doing, right? So you need to translate to the reality of the teenagers. And one final point would be to check with you, what is the current situation in Romania in terms of fluency in English of teenagers? Because of course our program is in English for now. And I was just wondering, you have most teenagers in Romania these days being able to understand English quite well, even when they're 13, 14, or it's a relatively small number?
No, the situation is quite good now in this moment because after the revolution that happened in 1999, most schools introduced mandatory English lessons and actually at least two foreign languages, and most people are learning now the English. I think that the teenagers 13, 14, 15 years old are able to have a conversation, and as a percentage, if you are asking me, I think that more than 90% of the teenagers from cities are able in urban areas are able to join a conversation in English when they are 13, 14, 15 years old. And this is very good. So it's a very important point in the schools to learn English. In Romania, because of obvious reasons, there are another two languages which are very, very used. The German language, especially in the Transylvanian part of Romania, as a second language, and the French language. It's a traditional, very, very close relation between Romania and France. And of course, many Romanians, because of the Latin roots, are learning very easily the Spanish and the Italian. But the English language is the basic language in the schools. And I repeat, I appreciate that more than 90% of the teenagers are able to join a conversation in English without any problem. And this is very good. I totally agree with you, Marcelo, when you are telling that the teenagers should do businesses and actually have common activities and not go only by themselves alone. It's okay to have experience also by yourself when you are alone, but as a group, it's very recommended to start the businesses. And then, of course, if there are some things that have to be very clearly clarified between the shareholders, for example, in a company, in a startup which can grow, if the teenagers will start together a new business, a very good and futuristic one with some ideas that nobody had, those things can be solved. Of course, in a business, they should know that there always can be failures. So it's not always about success in the business, but this is why I recommend it. And I'm speaking about courage, because those who are not having the enough courage to do anything, not necessarily to start a business, but to find a good job, to find a better job, to find better opportunities, those will just stay in a kind freezing in a point, and this is not okay. The young generation must go forward. They have to throw after them everything because they are enthusiasts, they are young, they are full of energy. Those who are not able to do this are just living with an anticipation of future events, and those people are not happy. Those people which are only waiting and anticipate that something will happen will be happy only when something will happen, like their kids will graduate the school, like their kids will find a job or something like this. But actually those persons will not be happy. And those who are trying to go forward, who have the courage to change, to find a new job, to generate a new business based on an idea with his friends, it's very okay. Then those persons will be much happier than those who are staying and just waiting for something to happen. So the pursuit of happiness is not just a beautiful expression in the Declaration of Independence of the United States, but it is also a very important status of how each of us should be, and especially the young generation, because I repeat, they are full of energy and they have to follow their dreams actually. And when we are talking about dreams, it's okay in the life not only to have dreams, but at least a part of those dreams make real, so that you can feel in this life your dream. So this is my point of view.
Yeah, we're trying to facilitate the journey to dreamland, so to say, right? So by giving them those kind of lower barriers, having a bundle, and then you can organize a garden party to raise some money and understand how to do business. And the approach, other than to carry on having these online sessions every month, to have more and more speakers getting involved, and organizing the live events after the pandemic recedes. We also want to implement what I'm now calling the wisdom fleet, because it has three ships: mentorship, internship, and entrepreneurship.
Oh,
And
it's interesting.
the concept in this case is, as soon as they're 13 or 14, they will be allocated a mentor or a mentorship group. I mean, in some cases, if the mentor, let's say we're piloting the program in Singapore, and we have this McKinsey consultant who is mentoring one of our alumni from Davos, and they exchange messages, they chat every now and that's working really well. The issue with that is that it doesn't scale, right? There are more teenagers needing mentors than speakers that we can invite here, because this is very time consuming, even though it's totally worth doing. So the idea is then to have mentorship groups where, let's say there's a film producer who is now working with the Cannes Film Festival. She's doing the innovation group, right? So she is in an official capacity with a very famous organization, and she is very busy. But the one thing that she can do is to host a workshop that, like these sessions, will get recorded, and the teenagers are invited to join the workshop so they can ask questions. And no, it doesn't take much of her time, but then we have a recorded session which can then be used by other teenagers who are curious about making movies and how it works and so on. And then you have the option in between, which perhaps you could even be interested in doing it that yourself. Once a month, you host half an hour, 40 minutes, a workshop on the future of automotive, right? So all of the kids from around the world that love cars, that want to know more about the car industry, they will be joining this workshop, and then they can have this kind of mentorship. But you can do it with hundreds of children, not one to one.
Absolutely, it's very interesting. And about what you were telling me about the new project of yours and about the future of automotive industry, I think that you could also find a discussion about the starships. Let's use a term from Elon Musk's SpaceX business,
Yeah.
because this is something that will be about the future, and this is something also about the future of automobile industry. And it's possible, very strange what I'm telling to you now, but the future of automotive industry is not only connected to autonomous driving and making electric cars and this kind of things, but it will be for the next 50, 60, 70 years connected to the development of cars which will be used by people which will live on other planets. Because I think in 50, 60, 70 years, the humanity will be able to generate establishments on different planets. Now we are talking about Mars or the moon or something like this, but even further. And the automotive industry will be that one which will generate the mobility cars for that kind of projects, which will be totally new for the mankind. And this is what I'm telling to you, that you can discuss about the starships. Actually, that starships, the rockets, help us only to go there. But how we are moving around there, it's something challenging, and in this moment, nobody has a concrete answer. We are using on Mars some robots which take pictures, videos, and it's perfectly beautiful. But how those vehicles will be driven by persons or will help human beings walk on Mars, for example. It's something that the automotive industry is already discussing, but there are not answers in this moment for this kind of ideas.
It's really interesting because during the sessions yesterday, we were discussing how to build houses on the moon because our first guest is a space architect. So she was explaining how difficult it is to build a house from regolith, which is moon dust, because it's really sharp. So you need to have like a high pressure house so that all the dust is blown outside. And these are problems that are worth discussing with the teenagers because they're very motivational, right? No, they could eventually be responsible for the design of a Mars buggy, not the first one because you already have Discover and a few others, but it's the one that people are actually going to use. I like the idea of having workshops with teenagers discussing technologies that will become commercially viable 5 to 10 years from now, because that's exactly when they should start finding that passion, right? Understanding that this is something they deeply care about. So that would be a great workshop, you know, how to design a Mars buggy. You know, if you want to organize that session, I'd be happy to host it.
You know, we are discussing now about the teenagers, but I think everybody's remembering how the Cars movie appeared and how big impact that movie had on kids, on small kids, kindergarten aged. And it was fantastic. So this kind of possible contest of how we can build or design or do cars for space, it's very interesting. And I think the teenagers can be attracted in this kind of discussions. I think also that the teenagers can be attracted and they can think about something very important. Previously, it was a colleague of us who worked in the capital markets, and everybody knows that instead of simple financial products, now we are talking about the fintechs, a lot of fintechs, new products connected to technology. Something similar will happen also in the automotive industry. As an example, the technological companies will develop their own brand of cars. So it's possible to have an Apple car. It's possible to have a Google car. It's possible to have this kind of cars or new startups that have even better ideas in the future. So teenagers can be attracted in this kind of discussions too. And it's very, very okay to go on this path because it's something about the future. This is why I was speaking about the new technologies, not the disturbing technologies. They are not disturbing already our life, but they are helping our life. And the teenagers are, I think, the best generation to come with this approach that the technologies will make our life better. And we have to accept in our life the new technologies without being having the fear that, oh, the artificial intelligence will dominate us or these kind of things.
Now, fear comes from ignorance, and the solution to ignorance is knowledge, right? So it just needs to give access to knowledge, which could be mentorship, internship, entrepreneurship, any of the three ships of the wisdom fleet. It's Ciprian, mulțumesc so much for joining me. And already have Oscar who's been waiting to start his session.
Thank you, Marcelo. Mulțumesc.